Hi phone lovers, here is part 3 in a series of videos explaining my take on how dogs learn. So we'll have a recap on part 2. Now in part 2 we discussed repetition, so we've established or started to establish an association in the dog's mind between a behaviour that it's doing and a consequence. So it could be a good consequence, something we're happy with. So sitting, so the dog sits, we show pleasure, we reward with treats, food, cuddles, strokes, praise. Then what we need to do is repeat that over and over and over and over again, thousands of times, to build neurological pathways in the dog's brain so that he learns to associate that this behaviour is good, this behaviour pleases my leaders. That's what we want the dog to think. And you do that through repetition. You can't just do it once and expect the dog to learn. Once we discussed that, we discussed volume. So we learn that dogs don't really communicate much with sound. They do a few whines and whimpers, and they show aggression maybe, or warning through sound, but they don't do much else. They don't send emails, they don't write messages for each other. Everything that they do is done through their body language. And we learn that we need to show what it is we're feeling through our body language, or what it is we want the dog to think we're feeling through our body language. So even if we're annoyed at the dog, so she's wriggling all over me now, I could be really annoyed at her, because I want her to sit still like a beautiful little TV puppy and sit here and be filmed. If I want her to come to me and I'm showing that displeasure or aggression, there's no way in the world she'll come to me. So I've got to convey to her through my body language that I'm really happy with you, I'm welcoming, I'm not going to shout at you, you're not going to receive any kind of correction. And when we learn that, we can start communicating with our body language as well. Well, communicating the message that we want to communicate with our body language, not communicating what we actually feel. So volume, or sounds and words, you can run around, you see people running around after dogs in fields shouting, come here, come here, come here, get here, sit, blah blah blah. To a dog, that's just background noise, doesn't listen or hear a word of it. It's just sounds, and it isn't bothered in the slightest. If two dogs are communicating, they do everything through the body language. And so we need to, if we can realise this, then we don't need to make as much noise, and our words and actions then become more consequential and less inconsequential to the dog. The dog hears us all the time shouting, sit, 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 and you just, so she's off again, don't listen. If your dog only hears you saying it when you really, really mean it, it's going to be more likely to listen, it's going to have consequences. Along with that is volume. So some people will say sit, and the dog ignores it, so they say sit, and see the dog didn't even flinch then. So adding volume, where it might work with a kid, if you tell your kid to eat his dinner, he doesn't want to. If you shout at your kid to eat your dinner, he's a little bit more frightened and he's going to eat his dinner. It doesn't work like that with dogs. Volume has no consequence whatsoever. Tone of voice does, so you can show pleasure through your voice and you can show anger through your voice, but volume has no consequence. So the sooner you can learn that they don't really listen to words or sounds, and the louder it is irrelevant, then we can stop the white noise and we can start communicating with the dogs in a language that they understand. And as soon as we do that, it's like having a Chinaman. If you've got someone who only speaks Chinese and you only speak English, you can say all you want to him in English, but it's going to have no consequence. And a little game is to get somebody who lives in the house with you and have a goal of, you want them to stand in that corner with their back against the wall. Now try and get them to do it without speaking or without touching them. That's what we want to do with dogs. We're communicating with them, we're speaking but they're not understanding, so it's pointless. We don't want to be touching them, as we learned in part 2. So what we're doing is we're trying to do everything through body language. Try and do that with somebody in your house and it's quite difficult. So then you'll realise how difficult it actually is with a dog. Once you can learn to do it better, then everything will get a little bit easier. and we spoke about getting a behaviour out of a dog before we add any sound to it. So you're trying to teach a dog to sit, you get the dog to put his bum on the ground. Once the dog's put his bum on the ground, that second, within 1 second, we reward it, and the dog then learns, hey, this action gets a good consequence. I'm going to be more inclined to do that. And then through repetition, you build and build and build until that's gone into the dog's brain. It's only then when the dog really knows that movement, that behaviour, that pattern, that you can add sound to it. So it's only then which you say sit. And you don't say sit beforehand, the dog doesn't know what it means, it's just a sound. You wait till the dog's bum's on the floor, then you give the command. So that's a recap on week 2. Hello, hello. So what we're going to talk about in week 3 is good girl, good girl. So what we're going to talk about in week 3 is the environments that we're doing things in. Now, I never said in part 1, but every bit of training I do with the dog is done in a sterile environment with no distractions. So it's here in my kitchen and my conservatory. Once the dog's really learned whatever it is I'm trying to teach him perfectly, not 90%, but absolutely perfectly in this room. So every time I say, come here, she'll come to me and sit in front of me and look at me, wait patiently. Then I'll move to another area with a few more different distractions. Where is it, little lady? What's this? What's this? Here you go. So only once she's learned whatever it is I want to teach her in here, with no distractions, I'll move on to the decking in my garden. Because that's got a few more distractions in the ways of smells, in the ways that there are a few plants out there that are blowing around in the wind. You might hear a few birds up. One of my neighbours has got a few dogs, so you might hear those. But we're trying to control as much as we can in the way of distractions for the dog. If you took a dog to a school where all the kids are out having dinner break, running around screaming, playing, having fun, there's no way in the world you're going to get the dog's attention. If you haven't got the dog's attention, you can't ask it to build these associations. So what we want to do is control as much as we can, control all the distractions and gradually add them in. Once I've done stuff on the decking and the dog really knows that when I say sit, my bum goes on the ground, I'll then move on to the grass in my garden. The grass is got loads more smells on it, it blows in the wind, it feels different on the feet. There are a lot more plants around the grass. And only when she's learned that 100%, absolutely perfectly, not 90%, will I then go onto my driveway. Now my driveway is closer to the road, there are people walking past, quite a lot of people walk past here with a dog. Out in the front there's a field with cattle in it, so she'll hear the cows moving. And we're adding these distractions bit by bit, and we're getting everything 100% perfect until we move on to a different area, a different distraction, different environment, different smells, different sights, different sounds. It's the people that have a puppy in the house and start teaching a few things, then the puppy has the jabs and is clear to go outside, and then they go straight outside and add all of these distractions in one go. These are the people that have all the problems, and we don't want to be these people. We want to control the distractions, stagger them in, phase them in one at a time. Only once the dog's confident and you're confident the dog's learned what you want to teach it. You want to control everything as best you can. So if you're trying to teach a dog recall, okay, go back to one of my videos where I think I've done 4 retrieves with me. You little rascal, in you go. I think I've done 4 retrieves with the dog so far. That's it, just 4. She's a retriever, and I'm not too fussed about that. But I control that environment. I took her to do those retrieves in my hallway, which is a long, narrow channel. So I threw it out. She's going to run out and chase it. She's going to pick it up, and there's only really one way to go, and that's back towards me. So I've controlled that as best I can. What I could have done is done it in a shorter area, and once she's got that, I could lengthen the area, but I'm controlling as much of that as I can do. If you're doing a recall, try and do that in a long channel, so that the dog's only got one way to go and it's got to go towards you. If you do it in an open field, in the middle of an open field, it's got all the directions of the compass to run away from. And it's going to go away and smile and investigate all these different things, rather than come to you because he knows you and knows what's there. So control everything you can as best you can, and you're setting yourself up for success. And that's the third one. Set yourself up for success. Never set yourself up for failure. So based on that, if you're going to try and do it in a big open field, straight away you're giving your dog different choices. Now that's what we want to do. We want to give the dog a choice of, when I hear the whistle, that means come back to daddy. I can run away over there and do this, or I can come back to him and sit in front of him and look up at him, and that really pleases him. That gets me rewards and praise and toys. Whereas if I run over there and ignore him, that's got bad consequences associated with it. He'll be displeased with me. My walk will end. I'll get no more retrieves, or wherever it may be. So set yourself up for success. Never set yourself up for failure. You are supposed to be in control. You're training this dog, not the other way around. The environment isn't training it. Your circumstances aren't changing it. You have got to control everything. And you can make as many excuses as you want in the world, but we have a lot of opportunities to set up for success if we pay attention to it. So once we've done that, so take sitting for example. Once I've taught my dog to sit in the house perfectly, 100%, she never fails. She hears that word and her bum sits on the ground straight away. I'll then go outside and I'll add in distractions. We've got a school next door, and the kids come out to play at dinner time, and then they make a right racket. If I went from this kitchen, where there were no distractions, to that school where the kids are on dinner break, and just tested the dog, if I went, I wonder if she'll do it now. There's no way in the world she'll do it. There's too many distractions for her, and it isn't embedded in her to do it under those circumstances. So never test the dog, never find out if it's gone in or not. Always set the dog up for success. Never test it and never give it a chance of failure, because if you do, it's going to learn that when I'm at school and my dad says sit, I don't need to. Or it might take him 3 times to say it, then I need to, because he's changed his tone of his voice or his body language. But never test your dog, and never set your dog up for failure. And after you've done all those, so I could have sit in the kitchen absolutely perfectly. I've gone out onto the decking and she's got it absolutely perfectly. I've gone onto the grass and she's done it absolutely perfectly. Then I've gone onto a driveway, she's done it absolutely perfectly. I've done it on a little car park next door where I do a lot of my training, she's done it absolutely perfectly. I go to the school and it's only 90%, so it's not perfect. If I carried on doing it there, it's only ever going to get worse, it's never going to get better. So what I do then, I go back a step, or go back 2 steps. So, and I'm not afraid, if you've got ego coming into things like that, then you're going to be less inclined to go back a step. Forget your ego, forget trying to prove things to other dog owners and show your dog off. What you want to do is teach the dog really well. So never be afraid to go back a step. If it doesn't work by the school, I'll go back to my driveway, or I'll even come in here, or I'll go in the garden. Always go back a step, get it really, really nailed in, drummed in, and then go forward a step. And get close to the school, but not right outside the school. Then get a little bit closer the next day, and a little bit closer the next day. And always setting up for success, you're never setting up for failure, never testing a dog, and always going back a step, and you'll be absolutely flying with whatever it is you're trying to teach. She's a mischief today. So that's part 3. I'll get part 4 filmed pretty soon, and hopefully we can start then building on the training that we know and become better teachers ourselves. And if we're better teachers, the dogs are really keen to learn and they never want to not learn, then we'll start getting the message home to the dog that this means this, and if you do it you get good things or bad things.